We know we were a much better team and we came up and represented ourselves. That's what we call a sacked lunch. Nom, 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 nom.
Good morning, Sac City! Welcome in. Yes.
Don't wake up the wife.
Trying not to wake up the wife.
He's going to be moving out by himself this weekend.
That's exactly what's going to happen. That's actually how my moves normally go. I just move out by myself, and then she ends up being at that place. And, welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Sac City Podcast. I'm your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined, as always, by my best friend in the whole entire world, Aaron, the Mukesiah Mukes. And below us, we have your boy, the reigning, you're still it until Friday, the reigning, the defending, and the undisputed, not so heavyweight valedictorian of the show, AJ Johnson. The next valedictorian of the show will be a heavyweight valedictorian. So that's the, you got to get, well, we're going to push that aside for you and then bring it in heavy on Friday. But it is a beautiful June 29th evening or morning here in the city. Episode 47 is about to kick off. We are going to get into the AFC West and their fantasy outlook. If you've missed any of our fantasy shows so far, they are all on YouTube live. Not live, but all the shows are in full on YouTube. Some are in nice clips. Some are in full shows. You can go out and enjoy those. It's the AFC North and the NFC West is what we've done so far. Tonight we will get into the AFC West with the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. So much fun to talk about. Gentlemen, how goes it? Aaron, are you ready for your real-world audition?
I am. Look, I was a little nervous to come on here, but I didn't think we were doing the real world. I was thinking more like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, seeing that I'm living my best single life here in Albany, Georgia. No wife.
Oh.
You gotta unbutton one more. You gotta unbutton one more. That's the Dylan. That's the Dylan. You saw him how he was. That oh my goodness.
Chippendale's lifestyle. Hooky.
It is what it is, man. I don't know. I don't know if that'll work though with my ring on. So shout out the missus. I still wear my ring now.
Hey, there you go.
But yeah, man, I'm good. I'm a little tired. A little late night last night. Working late. But I'm ready. It's always good to get up in the morning with you fellas.
Yeah, there it is.
Actual.
Oh man, AJ, you doing good? You doing good down there, buddy? Okay.
Yeah, man. I think I'm in now on this new schedule. Last week was rough getting up that way and working through with work and all the other stuff on the side. But now, we're here. We always talked about doing mornings. Just another step to making our dreams come true. Couldn't imagine doing it with anybody other than people who talk sports. I
gotta give this compliment before we get into this show, and I said I would do this, and I'm a man of my word. The Colorado Avalanche are the Stanley Cup champions, and I know this is not a hockey podcast, but Aaron, you were right when you said that the Colorado Avalanche were going all the way. When you said it at the beginning of the season, when you said it at the beginning of the playoffs, when you said it at the end of the Western Conference Finals, you were right. I was wrong. You know more about hockey than I do.
Hey, it is what it is, man. The fact that I said Avalanche, the fact that I said Avalanche in 6 just makes it that much sweeter. But let's be honest. I'm not going to go too crazy. I know I do it on the side, but they were the favorite all year. They were the best team all year. They were the most consistent. They came into playoffs hot. They ran through the playoffs. They did what they were supposed to do. And shout out to Colorado, man. First championship since what, 2000, 2001?
2002?
Yep.
20 years. It's been 21 years.
I believe it was 2000 when they last won.
2000-2001 season.
Yeah.
Not that I did a story on it the other day or anything, but
hey, there you go. There you go. There you go. All right, well, let's get into some football news. Let's get into our morning headlines. And yesterday, the Washington Commanders re-signed Terry McLaurin to a 3-year, $70 million extension, keeping him in Washington as a Commander. The good old Manders. Terry McLaurin is back. AJ, what is I want to talk about Terry McLaurin, but I really want to talk about Jahan Dotson. Because obviously Terry McLaurin in Washington, we've seen him. We know what he can do. But now he's going to be still the guy for the foreseeable future, at least for the next 3 years. What does that do for Jahan Dotson, at least for Dynasty for the next 3 years?
I mean, I think it makes him a very viable option. I mean, to be in that system and to have to been the guy at coming in as a rookie was going to be much more difficult. Now you have a proven stud on the other side who, let's be honest, we know what we talk about with Carson Wentz. It's still the best quarterback Terry McLaurin's played with in his career so far. So to now have a Terry McLaurin that defenses have to worry about, and now have you scheme the way they intended when they brought you in here, not to make you go above and beyond and be that number one right away. I think that's going to allow him to get the targets and the efficiency of those targets needed to be a solid wide receiver for dynasty purposes, one that you're going to enjoy having on your roster this year, but will undoubtedly see the value going forward in the next 2 to 3 seasons. So this is great news for Terry McLaurin as it was for Jahan Dotson as well when it comes to fantasy.
Yeah, I like that take because, a lot of people will look at that and think that sometimes there can't be 2 wide receivers that can actually produce in fantasy football on one team, especially if it's a Carson Wentz led offense. But I think I lean more towards where you're at right now with the fact that this does great things for Terry McLaurin or for Jahan Dotson going into, at least in the future in terms of dynasty, possibly bumps him up because I think he's going to do very well now as not the guy, not with all of that pressure on him to be the guy. Let's go on to another headline here. And Aaron, we're going to test out your internet connection here. It is going to be a deeper player in fantasy drafts. It's Cade Auden. Okay, no, you don't want me to test this? You don't?
Did he just say Cade Auden?
Trust me, you'll see what the report I'm talking about here. Okay,
you're actually not that far behind.
I'm trying to go deep into here. We're talking fantasy. Maybe these players will step up in the future. We know how much Tom Brady likes their tight ends, and Bucks.com writer Scott Smith considers rookie Cade Auden to be the best option to be the team's number 1 tight end this fantasy season. They like him a lot in Tampa Bay. I wanted to know from you, is Cade Auden on your radar at all in terms of fantasy drafts? Maybe the very last pick or somewhere down the road. Is he on your radar?
Let's see if I can make this very simple. No.
Okay, great. We'll move on then. We'll move on and not have to talk about. Let me give you a different one here. To make you feel a little bit better and more involved in the morning headlines. The Dallas Morning News reports Dalton Schultz and the team are not close on an extension. Does that worry you at all? Or does that maybe give you some hope for a breakout season for Jake Ferguson in his rookie year?
I believe we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I said it doesn't worry me from the Dallas Cowboys perspective. Like, Dalton Schultz is good, but he's not some great electrifying tight end. Even if what I think is going to happen is he'll play on the franchise tag eventually because he doesn't want to miss out on that money. He'll go sign somewhere else, and the Cowboys will move forward at the tight end position. I don't think it's a huge loss for them. I don't think it's something they have to get done. And I'm sorry, but I'm not overpaying for Dalton Schultz. If you can get a deal done that makes sense, that's team friendly, but that's great. But I'm not overpaying for Dalton Schultz. I'm not paying him as one of the best tight ends in football. I just don't think he's that type of player. He doesn't really block that great. He's a receiving threat, but he's not Kelsey. He's not Kittle. He's not Darren Waller. And I think Jake Ferguson actually brings a lot of some of the similar attributes that Dalton Schultz has. So if you pay him, it needs to be reasonable. If not, you let him walk and you move on. I don't think it's a big deal for Dallas.
it's like you have to trust Jerry Jones in this. Like, I feel like that's one of those things, like when it comes to money and re-signing players and contracts, I feel like Jerry Jones is one of those owners / GMs that are going to be able to just get things done, and do what's best for the team moving forward. And you talk about Dalton Schultz, and it's like, you're not going to go out there and overpay for Dalton Schultz. And I think Jerry Jones is smart enough to realize, I'm not wasting my money on paying Dalton Schultz that much. You shitting me?
You got to, like, these are things that the Cowboys need to. They've improved in over the years, but these are things you have to be good at and understand who is going to need to get paid. It's not just about Dalton Schultz. We have CeeDee Lamb in a couple of years. You have Trayvon Diggs in a couple of years. You have guys that are going to need to get paid, and you need to make sure that cap space is available. Obviously, the offensive line is getting a little bit older. They've had to retool that a little bit. Micah Parsons, I doubt he gets to his 4th year without wanting a contract extension the way he's playing, and they're going to have to pay a guy like that. So just understanding those things, you don't want to overpay for a position that's not – I'm sorry, it's just not that valuable in the NFL in general. And you can go find guys to fill in at far less value or far less price point to do the things that Dalton Schultz does.
Yeah.
Plus, there's like 2 or 3 wide receivers every year that are just changing their position to tight end. I mean, he'll be fine. Just pick up one of those Devin
Just get a Devin
Funches.
Just get a Devin Funches. He's out there. Oh man, I thought that was interesting. Like, what do you think? What do you guys think about that? Like a wide receiver switching to the tight end position? No, okay.
I mean, you're gonna do it in Detroit behind T.J. Hawkinson. Like, what did you really like? If you're gonna make it in Detroit as a wide receiver, like, go play in the CFL, bro.
No, he was on the Giants.
Yeah, he was on the Giants. Well, that's also another reason why.
Yeah, Devin Funches was on the Giants.
Definitely thought he went into Detroit.
But I mean, let's be real. Devin Funches was a Packer. Like, let's be honest. Kelvin Benjamin Benjamin is what we're talking about. He was a Giant.
Funches was in Carolina and then Green Bay, and then Detroit. Now,
right? Okay.
Yeah, he's now he's in Detroit. But let's be honest, those guys weren't good receivers. So that's part of the problem is they were not good at the position they were at. They got bigger. They weren't as athletic anymore. They tried to become tight ends. But I'm sorry, most receivers that didn't want to block in the first place aren't moving to tight end to block. They just want to have mismatches and play tight end. And usually if you weren't a good receiver, you're not moving to tight end and you're not going to be that good there either. So, no, I'll pass on the Devin Funches of the world.
As you should. As everybody should. Don't draft him in fantasy, okay?
Good, because I believe he played on the Colts too for a while. So
sleeper. Funches?
Yeah,
I think he get hurt like before he even saw the season.
But I mean, he was on the Colts roster. I know he's been on the Colts, he's been on the Packers, he's been on the Panthers, and then now Detroit.
Let's get a full career update for. So he was with Carolina, Indianapolis, and Green Bay.
Yeah,
that was a thing. It was oof. Well,
we've already spent too much time.
He never played for Green Bay.
So
correct.
He never actually played for Green Bay, but he was with the Packers. That is it. That is it. We've spent way too much time talking about Devin Funches.
Right.
Let's get into position with our AFC West talk here. This is where we break down a positional ranking within the division that we're talking about. The AFC West is the chatter tonight. I had a really hard time deciding on which one I wanted to do with ranking fantasy options at a certain position for this division, because we did a lot of running back talk last week, and this week it's a lot about the wide receivers. So I'm actually going to change things up. I know in the doc it says rank the AFC West running backs, but I'm changing it up because I want to talk about this more. Rank the AFC. It's not like Aaron, it's not like you read the doc because you already say, "Oh, I don't need to read the doc."
I just read it when I brought it up, just because I didn't look at it before the show.
Well, good. That means you don't have that much planned for an AFC West running back talk. You have more planned for an AFC West. Okay, well then fine. We'll do both. How about that? We'll do both for the fans. Not for you, not for me. We'll do it for the fans. Let's talk about
the AFC people, Craig.
For the people. Okay. AFC West fantasy running backs. How would you rank them, AJ?
All right. We talking team-wise or name-wise?
Name-wise. That's how we've done it the past two shows.
Fantasy football, man.
Just double checking, because I mean, you look at, because in this division, I mean, we're talking about a decent amount of people, except for really the Chargers. You are thinking about a committee, but that's okay. So either way, I'm gonna go Austin Eckler. Then I'm gonna go Josh Jacobs, then Javonte Williams, and then insert Kansas City running back here. And it's basically because it's insert Kansas City running back here.
The disrespect for Clyde. We're gonna talk about Clyde more later, but the disrespect. Clyde, insert Kansas City running back. Like you saying Ronald Jones is going to be that dude in Kansas City.
That dude? No. Carry the rock every now and then? Probably. I mean, they ain't just say, hey, man, we really wanted to pay a bench position. You want to come over here and sit for a couple mil? Let's have some fun. No, that's not how that's going to go down. I feel like your list was spot on, though. I feel like it's the best. It's the proper way of ranking those running backs, although some may have Javonte Williams over Josh Jacobs. But from our last,
I know that's what you want. I know that's what you want to do.
No, I did not say that.
That's what you want to do.
The more I think about it, though, the more I come around to the idea of Josh McDaniels wanting to absolutely bury Josh Jacobs in carries, like just run him to the ground and then say bye-bye, and that's it. Like, I continue to think about that. Yeah. I was making the graphic the other day for our tiers list, and I'm looking at Josh Jacobs in tier 2, and I'm like, Josh McDaniels is going to run this dude to the ground. He is going with the touches alone. He is going to be an RB1, and you're not going to be able to get around it. Like,
didn't pick up his option. We saw how he liked to use Damien Harris last year. How he tried to use Ramondre Stevenson. I expect that to happen too. But even still, when I ranked the two, like giving Javonte Williams third, it's just the fact of, like Aaron said last week, Josh Jacobs has done it. We see Javonte Williams coming, and to me, I have him like right there. Like Javonte Williams, by the end of the season, in my opinion, based on what we talked on Friday, I could see him being the number 2 in that division when it's all said and done. So I'm with you. Like, I do think he's going to get all the carries. I just think Javonte Williams is also going to have a really good season. But where we sit today, that would be how I stack them down.
It's fair. Aaron, any thoughts before I give you the wide receivers?
No, the order is right. The order is right. I would say I disagree. I agree that Josh McDaniels is going to give the carries to Josh Jacobs. I disagree in the fact that offense is going to be similar to the way New England buried Damien Harris and Ramondre Stevenson in carries, because they have a much better quarterback and a much better receiving core than New England had. I don't know that it's going to be as much run, but I do think Josh Jacobs is going to be the goal line guy, huge touchdown numbers, and is going to be heavily used in the red zone, which is kind of his specialty. That's where a lot of his fantasy production has come. Until last year, he wasn't really catching the ball out of the backfield a lot. I think the addition of a Devonte Adams and now a Darren Waller and a Hunter Renfrow helps his cause as a passing down back, because we know he's a 3-down guy and he loves to stay on the field. I think it helps him in this case. He's going to see huge volume. I don't know if it's necessarily all on the ground like a New England kind of system was, but I think the order's right. I think it's Eckler. I think it's Jacobs. I think it's, as long as the nuisance of Melvin Gordon is behind, Javonte Williams, it's just it's gonna limit his upside, or it's gonna cap his upside. He can still end up being a low end RB1, RB2, but his upside is going to be capped because of a Melvin. And then I think I would put Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there, but I would put Clyde Edwards-Helaire closer to a Melvin Gordon than maybe some people are thinking. Yeah. And I do believe Ronald Jones is going to play a factor in that offense, and maybe even some Jerick McKinnon, who started to come on last year, who they just re-signed.
Man.
Yeah. Yep.
Man.
Yep.
We're gonna talk more about Clyde in a little bit. I got some interesting thoughts on him. But Aaron, give me the top 8 wide receivers in this division, because each team has 2 wide receivers that you could realistically put in consideration here.
Number one is
but
Devonte Adams, and it's not a argument to me. Number 1 is Devonte Adams. Number 2 is Keenan Allen. Number 3, I am going to say, this might be, I'm going to say Mike Williams. It's going to be Mike Williams for me. Number 4, I'm going to say it's going to be Cortland Sutton, who is going to be the guy in Denver who kind of stands out. So I'll say number 4 is Cortland Sutton. Number 5, I'm going to give to Juju.
Wow.
I'm going to give number 5 to Juju based on volume. Number 6, I'm going to say Hunter Renfrow. Number 7, I'm going to say Jerry Jeudy. And number 8, I am going to say
Josh Palmer.
WNBA player Sky Moore.
No, number 8, I am going to give
Nicole Hartman
to Nicole Hartman. I think Nicole Hartman is going to be that other guy. I'll say that.
Okay, so run it back again and consistent.
Devonte Adams.
Okay,
I got to think. Devonte Adams, Keenan Allen,
yeah.
Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jerry Jeudy. Who did I say?
Renfro.
Hunter Renfro.
Oh no, Hunter Renfro, Jerry Jeudy, and then Nicole Hartman.
Okay. All right. Really interesting about Hunter Renfro. This is a guy that obviously was the wide receiver 1 for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. Now with Devonte Adams coming in, it really shakes things up. I want to talk about him and when we get to the Raiders, but I like that list. AJ, do you have any negative takeaways from his list before we move on?
I was not overly surprised that Juju got 5. I mean, it's understandable the way Juju, what we've seen have to conspire with Juju Smith-Schuster. And you're based on what you've seen, not what's going to be expected from Juju. So, giving Mike Williams based on I think we gave Mike Williams his spot based on his last season and what we expect him to continue doing. But when it comes to fantasy, a lot of people could argue the inconsistencies that Mike Williams has put up year to year. So 5's not overly disrespectful to Juju. Had he gone 6 or 7, I would have had questions, but I can understand him falling to 5 and letting him prove himself back into that top 4 as a wide receiver 1 in this division. So not too many questions. It's just a little thought process and a slight shock right there. But other than that, it's pretty spot on in my opinion.
Fair enough. We're going to get into that, all of it in a little bit. Some of those wide receivers specifically with their teams in just a few moments. But AJ, you know what time it is. Please load up those golden pipes and tell the beautiful people where they can follow us at.
Good morning, Sac City. Welcome into a wonderful episode. We thank y'all for rocking with us. That was the morning headlines that you found right here at Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Head on over to each and every single one of those platforms and hit that like, hit that share, hit that follow, hit that heart, hit that box with the arrow on the top. Do all them buttons that means that you follow and have talked about and told somebody about. Good morning, Sac City. Hashtag GMSC. We appreciate all the love. Don't ever stop. At Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Your boys are back in town. Good morning. And I'll take over the rest while
I was on
Vinny.
Oof, that's a big time hidden minus. Yeah, it is good morning, Sac City. Please, if you want to tweet about the show, please use that hashtag GMSC on Twitter to let us know what you think of the show. If someone says something stupid, if someone says something you don't agree with, argue with us. Let us know. Say it with chest. Don't be afraid. Use that hashtag GMSC on Twitter. Represent the city. Represent a good morning. It's Sac City. Let's get into our divisions here, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. And we just talked about Juju Smith-Schuster, and AJ, you brought up WNBA superstar Sky Moore. They got a lot of weapons there. We have been on this show many of times talking about who is going to be the guy. Who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver? Who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver? We obviously know Travis Kelce is going to get his. But let's put this to rest. Who is going to be the wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 on this team? Aaron, I know we just ranked everything for all of it. You had Juju up top, but rank the rest of that team and let us know how fantasy owners should be looking at this wide receiver group.
I think what you're going to end up having happen is they're going to be closer than you expect. I think you're going to have a Juju Smith-Schuster who probably leads all the receivers in catches because of his target share outside of a Travis Kelce, the way he works the middle of the field, the short passing game, things like that. I think he'll lead the team in catches, but you're going to have guys like Nicole Hartman, Sky Moore, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling that get the bigger plays, that go have 5 catches, 140 yards in a game and a touchdown or something like that. I think it ends up being obviously Travis Kelce being the number 1 pass catcher with the Chiefs. But as far as receivers, it's Juju Smith-Schuster leading in fantasy points. A close number 2, in my opinion, is going to be Nicole Hartman. And then number 3, and I'm going to say it's going to be Sky Moore. And I know I'm leaving off Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and I'm going to say it again. He's played with the best quarterback, most talented quarterback we had seen perhaps since before Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen came in the NFL. And he never could get over the hump with a Devonte Adams on the other side. And now you're asking him to do more as a number 1 weapon or something. And I just don't think it's going to happen. He'll have his moments. He'll have his big plays, his 2-touchdown game or whatever, because it just unfolds that way. But on a consistent basis, I think you're going to see what you've seen over the past 4 years of his career, which is very inconsistent play, a lot of drops, and somebody that you just can't trust on a week-to-week basis. And for me, in an offense like Kansas City, when there's so many weapons, I don't think they need to be patient with them. I know they paid them, but I don't think they have to be patient and say, oh, we're going to go to you all the time because we've given you a 3-year deal. I think it's something he'll be on the field, but he might not get those looks. It's going to remind me a lot of – he doesn't play like him, but it's going to remind me a lot of a DeMarcus Robinson when he was at Kansas City. Always on the field, but never got the ball. You know what I mean? Like he was always on the field, but never got the ball. So I think that's what we're going to see from an MVS.
I've been on the show many of times saying that I love the Juju Smith-Schuster being the number 1 guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he could be a wide receiver too. Like by season's end, he is going to be a wide receiver too, at least for this Kansas City Chiefs team, which obviously a very high-powered offense. But something you brought up there with, I mean, you had Juju and then Nicole Hartman, and Nicole Hartman right now is being drafted as the wide receiver 62. That's well past MVS, who's wide receiver 57, and well past wide receiver 56 in Sky Moore. So those 2 guys are going back to back, Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling back to back, and in like wide receiver in terms of the wide receiver value. But then there's Nicole Hartman, who you have as the number 2 wide receiver on this team, being drafted so late. It's criminal.
Well, first of all, like it's funny to me how we just assume a guy who hasn't produced, which Nicole Hartman has not been a consistent producer. But let's be honest, he played behind Tyreek Hill. And Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill were the main contributors. They were the guys that they were looking for. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Nicole Hartman right now is the starter in Kansas City, alongside of Juju Smith-Schuster and ahead of guys like Sky Moore. And I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling gets listed as a starter as well, but he plays on that outside where DeMarcus Robinson used to play. Nicole Hartman has played with Patrick Mahomes the longest, knows the offense. There's no adjustment period. And I think that's the biggest thing here. To me, it's a trust factor. He's had big plays in big games for a team that's been to 4 straight AFC Championship games. Andy Reid likes him. Andy Reid believes in him. They've gone back to him even after he's made mistakes, and they haven't given up on him. That tells me enough that they see something in him. And let's not forget, he's still young. This is a guy that's not a very old. He's a young player still. I think this is his chance, and this is his opportunity, where if he doesn't do it this year, then you might start having that talk about, hey, maybe this guy just doesn't have it. But the dude's 23. Okay, he's 23 years old, and he had 700 yards last year on almost 60 catches as a number 3 or 4 option. So I think we need to be patient with that. We tend to get impatient with guys like that. But I think there's huge potential there, and I really like Nicole Hartman this year, especially where he's being drafted.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that with the value that he's going at. It's, I mean, like, you're getting someone who has the potential to be your wide receiver, like be the wide receiver 1 on one of the best offenses in the NFL, and you're getting him so late in drafts as the wide receiver 62. That's absurd. Like that's probably not being drafted in some drafts. Like if you're only playing 2 wide receivers, you're probably not drafting them in some leagues, and that's a damn shame. But do you see possibly with how high you are on him, do you possibly see during training camp you start seeing more of his name being brought up and him being one of those players that really skyrockets up the draft boards? Because obviously we're talking ADP in June, so
preseason.
Maybe, yeah,
it would have to be seen in preseason.
Okay.
Because people don't believe in Nicole Hartman now because they've wanted to for so long. But if you understand the Kansas City offense, it is not going to support 3 big-time pass catchers. It usually doesn't. This year, it might support 2 okay ones and Travis Kelce, but in the past, it's been Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And those are the only 2 it's going to support. So, but this year, with it being so wide open, I do think you're going to run into a situation where you're probably getting 2 wide receiver 3s out of Kansas City and then Travis Kelce versus getting a wide receiver 1, Travis Kelce, and then a wide receiver 2 or 3. I just don't see that happening. I think it's spread around a lot more this year just based on the offense alone. And I think Nicole Hartman, again, just draft him. You're not going to have to take him early. Take him in the 13th, 14th, 15th round. Why would you not take that flyer? And I would say the same thing for a guy like Sky Moore. If you feel like he's going to be the one to excel, it might be him that overpasses the Nicole Hartman. But yeah, I just don't think – I think those guys have to be drafted in that offense this year because we just don't know.
Take your shot on whatever wide receiver you believe is going to be the guy in Kansas City. Like where their ADP is, just go.
And I think you'll know quickly. I think you'll know quickly in the season, whether it's the first 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to be like, you know what, I can drop him because it's going to be this guy or something. I think you'll know fairly quickly.
So something that we didn't know. AJ, did you have anything on that? I didn't want to pass over you.
I can do it quickly. I mean, because I could go with a bunch of the stuff that he said because I liked a lot of it, and I think he's on for a lot of it. I also think there's a little bit that you can change. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to see a big uptick in touchdowns. I think he's going to be used a little bit more in the red zone. I have Sky Moore slightly ahead of Nicole. Not anything against Nicole because I agree with you. Like, it was hard to trust him when it was Tyreek. But now I agree that it's also going to be spread way more open. And I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to enjoy the opportunity to spread the ball a little bit more. Maybe keep Travis Kelce a little healthier as he gets older for an entire season. Not that, that's something we need to really, really worry about. But, after I think Juju is a definite draft. And then I think you do just take your dart, though, on Sky or Nicole. And one of those guys is going to be the one that you're going to be getting your wide receiver 3 from. I think they both have potential to have a great season or a really, really good season.
So we're maybe coming to the conclusion that MVS is a stay away from guy, like
he's your waiver wire watch
candidate. Yeah,
that's exactly right. He's the waiver wire watch.
Yeah. My thing with MVS is like, because everyone's like, I mean, you're not doing much difference in the quarterback. But my thought process again is that Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to spread the ball a little more. I mean, you're talking about 160 targets that are freed up from a Tyreek Hill, and I get that it's going to go to a couple other places, but. I mean, if MVS has his streaky games, if he can do it 2 games in a row, who's to say they don't try to give him the ball a little bit more often? So, I think he would be the last that I draft at this point.
I can see it now. He's drafted week 3. He's on the waiver wire. He's picked up in week 6. In week 9, he's dropped. In week 13, he's picked up. And week 15, he's dropped. And
that's his career.
That's what I'm so used to seeing. I'm so used to seeing in fantasy that he's just in and out.
And he's not young. I mean, he's not old, but he's not the guy that's 23 on his 3rd year. He's 27. Like, he's a little bit older. He's been in the league. He's had some opportunities. He came in late as a guy that was late, like 24 years old, starting in the NFL when most guys are coming in at 21, 22, and 23 now. He was 24. He's 27, 28 now, and his best year was 690 yards, 33 catches. He's never had more than 38 catches with Aaron Rodgers. And as a starter, given more opportunity, he was passed up by Allen Lazard. Like, they gave him the opportunity to be the number 2 guy, and he couldn't do it. And now you expect him to go to KC and be the number 1?
Red flag alert. Don't draft Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That's what we're saying here. Book it right there. You can pick him up on the waiver wire in week 3. Aaron, you brought up something, though, that kind of ties into my next point. You said that we'll know which wide receiver Kansas City goes with early on in the season based off of what we see. Clyde Edwards-Zelaire in his first game as the Kansas City Chiefs running back had 4 goal line carries. Since then, he's gotten 6 goal line carries since then. And obviously, I'm trying to debunk this myth. Maybe I'm trying to get some deep analysis on Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he seems to be a guy that no one knows what to do. I was a Clyde Edwards-Helaire owner last season, and I didn't know what the hell to do. Was he an RB2? Was he an RB3? Should I try and flex him? Should I try and trade him? What's his value right now? He's going as RB25, so he's just on the outside of an RB2. Currently an RB3. I want to know what the ceiling and the floor is for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and if people should feel comfortable drafting him this year.
Yes. I mean, let's answer that second part first. Should you feel comfortable drafting him? Yes. I mean, you're not leaving a running back 2 flex play on just out there on waivers. You got to feel comfortable drafting him. But I think when you talk about potential, I think his potential is it really depends on how Kansas City wants to approach that backfield. You talk about the goal line carries. I don't really pay much attention to that. This is the NFL. Guys are giving the ball to damn fullbacks. Kyle checks at the goal line. They gave him 4 that first game because they wanted him to get in the end zone. It just didn't work out. Since then, you got to remember, Kansas City runs a lot of Tyreek Hill jet sweeps, a lot of Travis Kelce at the goal line, lining up under center. I think this year is probably Clyde's best chance to be the breakout. And if he does not break out this year, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. With no Tyreek Hill, that offense is forced to change. Defenses are going to play them more like they did last year, which means Kansas City is going to have to be patient and run the football. And I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has to be a big part of that. I don't think you can take him out of that mix. 2021, he was running back 45. I thought obviously that was a big drop-off, but he did miss 7 games. 2020, he played in 13 games, only in 13 games, still missed 3 games, and he was RB22. So could he put up seasons like that again? Absolutely. And he hasn't scored many touchdowns. He only had 6 and 5 touchdowns in those 2 years. I think he's destined to have that, if not more, this year. I do like Clyde this year because I think people are down on him. I think it's one of those running backs that he's going to get dropped, and he's going to continue to drop in those later rounds. And you're going to look at him and you're going to go, how do I pass up on the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, who I know are going to score a lot of points? And there's no Darrell Williams there this year, who they trusted heavily in that offense. It's Ronald Jones, who hasn't been known to be trusted. And I mean, he could end up doing something, but to start the year, I think it's going to be Clyde, and he'll have his chance. And as long as he stays healthy, I think if you're taking him in that flex, with that flex mindset or that possible get into the RB2 mindset, I think you're okay.
AJ, did you brought up Ronald Jones earlier when you were talking about we're ranking the running backs. You said insert Kansas City running back here. Do you think Ronald Jones is going to be a bigger part of this team to where he could take over for Clyde?
I don't think it's going that far. I think that he will be given his chance enough that if there's anything lingering with CEH, he'll get a bulk of the carries for a few games. I do think they'll try to run him in the passing game inside the red zone, inside the 30 yards towards a touchdown. I just don't think they brought him in just to hope and have a safety net if anything goes wrong. And then as well with that, the Jerick McKinnon factor as well, they brought him back. It wasn't just Jerick McKinnon sitting out there, let's go grab him. And somebody they have a rapport with, somebody they also trust. And when was healthy, can be pretty dangerous in the open field and missing tackles and things of that nature. There's about, for the last 3 seasons, 111, 112, and 112 targets in Kansas City went out to the running backs. Like that is collectively. That's something that I think is still going to play a factor. They don't run the ball as much as they would like to because Patrick Mahomes. So I think I think that's the hindrance on Ronald Jones is if they are only passing the ball and CEH is doing well, you won't see as much as you expect to see of a Ronald Jones. But once they start getting leads and once they start wanting to pound the ball, I think you start seeing a little bit of a spell there for a Ronald Jones, bringing him in for CEH and the very small uses of Jerick McKinnon as well.
Let's play the game real quick. Aaron, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, AJ Dillon.
Ooh, as you started off, as crazy as this may sound, Man, you know what? I'm gonna slightly take AJ Dillon slightly.
Okay. AJ,
I think
you're
he's
on board with that.
I think Aaron Jones is going to be used heavily in the pass game and not so much in the run game this year. I think AJ Dillon is slightly better.
Okay. Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Miles Sanders?
Miles Sanders, but I'm a Miles Sanders guy, so I believe Miles Sanders could be legit.
He's going to have a great year.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders is faded because he didn't score a touchdown in the rushing game last year. That's not happening 2 seasons in a row.
Kareem Hunt or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I will tell you, I'll take Clyde. I'm not a big Kareem Hunt guy.
I'd probably take Kareem.
All right.
I'd probably take Kareem.
Tony Pollard or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Clyde.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Clyde as well.
Okay. One last one: Damien Harris or Clyde?
Ooh, that's only tough because I don't know what they want to do anymore.
Don't know who the offensive coordinator is. Don't know who's calling the plays.
I would take Clyde.
I would too, because I know what he's going to get, at least in the passing game, and I don't think Damian Harrison is going to either. And I think Ramondre Stevenson is on the come up.
All right. Let's move on to the Las Vegas. I almost said the Oakland Raiders. Sorry. Let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders here. And obviously with the shiny new toy coming into town and Devonte Adams, that puts him probably most likely as the wide receiver 1 for this team. Aaron, what is
his full set most likely?
Barring injury, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver on this team. Hunter Renfro was that last year. You talked about him. You ranked him bottom 8 in this division. What is his floor this season for the people who are drafting Hunter Renfro?
What is you want numbers, or do you want like?
I want your analysis.
Like ranking?
Both numbers and ranking here for those trying to draft. I mean, there's people that are still pretty high on Hunter Renfro from what I have seen. And
I mean, if you want to talk his floor is irrelevant in fantasy, which is wide receiver 60, 70, whatever he's been in the past. I don't correlate Devonte Adams coming to Las Vegas to improving Hunter Renfro's fantasy value. I think it hurts because he saw a huge uptick in targets last year compared to what he saw prior to that. Before last year, he saw 77, and prior to that, it was 71. Last year, he saw 128, and caught 103. I thought last year his targets went up so significantly, and his yards per catch sits right around 10. He had 100 catches, 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns. I think his touchdown numbers drop off this year. I'm not sure where he's being drafted currently, but I think that the addition of Devonte Adams, which in normal cases would help the guy that's seeing all the defenders and stuff like that. I think it hurts Hunter Renfro in this place because I do think more targets go Devonte Adams' way. Darren Waller's going to be back. I think Hunter Renfro's value is diminished at to where he's finished last year. No way he's finishing as wide receiver 11. Let's just say that.
His ADP right now is in the sixth round. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 28. Ahead of he's right next to Cortland Sutton. He's being drafted ahead of guys like Jerry Jeudy, Adam Thielen, Elijah Moore, Allen Robinson, Gabe Davis.
So Gabe Davis, Allen Robinson, Cortland Sutton. Elijah Moore, I actually have falling off a little. I don't have Elijah Moore as high as most people because I think Garrett Wilson is going to come in and be a problem. They still have Corey Davis, and it's the Jets. So who knows? But I think above those guys, above Cortland Sutton and Allen Robinson, I think is insane.
He's right next to Cortland Sutton. He's going wide receiver 27 is Cortland Sutton, and wide receiver 28 is Hunter Renfro.
Wide receiver 37 to wide receiver 45. Okay. Somewhere in there is where I'd have Hunter Renfro.
So nowhere near what his ADP is.
No.
Okay.
Which he's going to be overdrafted. He finished 11th in PPR last year. People are going to overdraft him. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And then people think, Devonte Adams is there. He gets double covered. Hunter Renfro is going to be open. he's not going to be any more open than he was open last year, right? Like he works out of the slot. He doesn't play outside. So none of that's going to change. His yards per catch is not going to go up, and his touchdowns are not going to go up because of the way he plays football. I doubt he has the Cooper Kupp style breakout. Let's just say that.
It's funny. I'm not sure if you were looking at like any ADPs here, but like you said, wide receiver 37 is roughly where his like ceiling is, and to wide receiver, whatever you said. But like
25.
I'm looking at the receivers at that range to go back to 37. He is that was almost spot on of where I would have Hunter Renfro. I'd consider taking him over guys like I don't even know if I'd take him over Drake London, or I'd consider taking him over Brandon Ayuk, Treylon Burks, Chase Claypool. I'd consider that. But
Claypool's probably my line. I'd probably have him over Claypool, and Claypool's my line. I might take a Treylon Burks just because of opportunity there. I might take a Drake London just because of opportunity there. There's nobody else really to catch passes, and they're going to feature those rookies. But I could understand somebody taking Hunter Renfro over that.
What about Bob Woods?
Worried.
I'll be honest. I think his career's on the backside. He's been a good receiver for a long time, coming off a major knee injury. I think he's more of a complimentary. Hey, I'll catch 60 balls. I'll get 800 yards, and I'll have an okay season, but nothing special.
Touchdowns. Yeah.
That's fair. He's going as the wide receiver 39 right now, but that is.
I feel like if he stayed with the Rams, I'd feel different. I feel like coming off an injury and going to Tennessee,
you'd bump him up to where Allen Robinson is at wide receiver 32.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to a run-first offense anyways. Yeah. So you're going to have the volume's not going to be there for him.
Well, I guess more so it's more that he went to Tennessee than the fact that he stayed with the Rams, I guess. Because there's other teams where I'd feel better too. But I don't know. It's not even supposed to be the hate on Tennessee. It's just I feel like they're in flux right now, bro. I really do.
Yeah. It's weird there. AJ, let's finish off the Raiders here. Derek Carr has only been a top 10 fantasy quarterback once in his career. His finishes look like this. He's never finished higher. In the last 5 years, he has not finished higher than a quarterback 12, and that was last year. This man is now getting Devonte Adams, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. Do you see him cracking the top 10 this year in fantasy football?
That I do. And I mean, the proof is right there on your very beautiful graphic. He's gotten better every single year, and he finished as a QB1 in most what we call a 12-team standard league now. Adding Devonte Adams gives him that weaponry that we were really hoping for, what we were expecting to have when we thought they had receivers. Now you give him a guy in Devonte Adams who's the best receiver in the NFL, coming from a quarterback who knew how to play the position quite well, back with this guy from college, red zone threat. All the types of things you need to be successful. And then let's talk about the way last season went for him. He made things happen despite what he was given. Finishing with 23 touchdowns passing. People had him going for 30, 35 touchdowns last year. It was the upside. I think having Devonte Adams as a red zone threat. I think Darren Waller coming back healthy. I think the report that he does have a Hunter Renfro, whether he stays the same or regresses slightly, I think you should see him hit that 30 touchdown area. And with that being thought about, last season, every quarterback that threw for 30 touchdowns was in the top 10. So I definitely think that he has that opportunity this season to be a top 10 quarterback with a Devonte Adams, a Hunter Renfro, a Darren Waller, a Josh Jacobs, and a Josh McDaniels. So I think he can crack the top 10 this season.
AJ coming out hot, spitting fire. Aaron, what you got?
Dylon.
I love the idea. Because the premise, everything he said, it's spot on. He's not cracking the top 10. And the reason is because fantasy football, it's just simple. He doesn't run. He doesn't use his legs, and the offense relies heavily. I mean, Josh McDaniels, we don't know yet, but the offense relies heavily on Josh Jacobs in the red zone, which is why he's never had those huge touchdown volume numbers. They run the ball in the red zone. I don't expect that to change much. Devonte Adams will get his in the red zone. Waller will get his. But I still think Josh Jacobs is going to be featured in the red zone, which is going to keep Carr's touchdown numbers 25. Even if he does get to 30, he's not going to throw for enough yards. He's usually been right around 4,000 yards. Last year, he threw for 4,800, which was his most by far of his career. But if you look at the top 10 guys every year, outside of the wild Tom Brady, who throws it 60 times, throws for 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, it's Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, who can use his legs, like guys, Patrick Mahomes, who uses his legs a little bit, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. They're all guys that either throw the ball 45 to 50 times a game or they're using their legs. And Derek Carr just doesn't use his legs. Like he just doesn't run enough. It's going to keep him right around the border, 10, 11, 12, 13. But it's going to be hard for him to crack that top 10 without injuries or without a significant increase in touchdowns and yardage. And again, I think with Josh Jacobs being relied upon in the red zone, it's going to be hard for him to do it. He'll be close. He's good.
Slight rebuttal. And I'll even acknowledge that you don't see this quite often. But thinking about this division and how well they play each other, firstly, but how explosive their offenses will need to be to keep up with the pack, I think you'll see the throwing numbers be otherworldly. That's heavy, but very, very high, right? The other thing is, and this is the outlier I was talking about, what was Josh Herbert's last year? Wasn't he like QB? He was top 5 QB, right? QB2, if I'm not mistaken.
QB2.
But
he also threw for
63 attempts and 302 yards. So, I mean, like.
Yeah, but he also threw 40 touchdowns. That's what I'm saying.
Like 5,000 yards. But see, I'm saying 23 last year for Derek Carr was in a season where so much BS happened, where he was underperforming basically.
But that's been his whole career.
Yeah, but this can you tell me a team that he's had that's better than this offense that he's looking at this
season? I agree with you there. But I also that 300 yards that Justin Herbert threw, how many did ran for? Derek Carr ran for literally 100 yards. So you're talking 20 more points of Justin Herbert was just strictly on running the football. Doesn't include rushing touchdowns, which I'm not sure if Justin Herbert had any, but those things matter. That's the difference between a quarterback 9 and a quarterback 12.
3.
You know what I mean? Like that, there's a huge difference there between a quarterback 9 and a quarterback 12, because those numbers are usually close, but those rushing is what makes the difference. I take Kirk Cousins every year, for example, 4,000 plus yards, 30 touchdowns, and can't crack the top 10 because he just doesn't get enough on the ground to compensate for either too many interceptions or he's not over exceeding the 40 plus touchdown mark. I think Derek Carr is very similar to that. He'll always be in the conversation. And I'm not coming at people who say, oh, he's going to be in the top 10 because there's a chance, but he'll usually end up falling 11, 12, 13, 14, a very, very solid high-end quarterback to quarterback 1. And you notice, like you said, the last 2 years, probably his 2 best years. I mean, are his 2 best years, and he's been right on the cusp of a quarterback 1 in 12 teams leagues. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's where Derek Carr should be going in drafts.
He is being drafted right now as the QB 13. Right behind Matthew Stafford and right ahead of Trey Lance and Kirk Cousins. But let's move over to the Chargers side of things. And it ties into that perfectly because you just brought up Justin Herbert. And right now, Justin Herbert is being drafted as the QB3 in the 4th round. Start of the 4th round. Sorry, math. You know how hard it is for me on these shows. He's being drafted as QB3 in the 4th round. AJ, do you think that Justin Herbert can finish as the number 1 quarterback with all of what we just talked about with rushing and how Justin Herbert might not have that, but like we saw last season, he finished very close to that number 1 spot. So can Justin Herbert do it this year and finish as the QB1?
I do not think so. Last season was fantastic, but to see another 5,040 yard or 40 touchdown season back to back, I think is unlikely. I think you're going to catch some regression, maybe 4,300 yards, maybe 33, 34 touchdowns. I mean, you're basically fielding the same team. Granted, we expect them to develop and get better as a whole, but I don't think it's better to the tune of 52 or 5,300 yards. I don't think you're watching him throw over 40 touchdowns again, unless he somehow – and I do think the difference here, and we're talking about Derek Carr as a top 10, being in the QB1, yeah, you're either going to have that Patrick Mahomes season or you are going to have some great rushing numbers and a lot of rushing touchdowns, and I don't know that he'll be able to put that on. So unless Mike Williams can keep up a consistent season all the way through, along with Keenan Allen being the same 1,000-yard, 100-reception type guy week in and week out, I don't know that you can do that. Also, I mean, how much is Austin Eckler going to take away from you when it comes to unless your touchdowns, your receiving touchdowns are in the 14 instead of any of the rushing touchdowns, which is better likely than not, I think that takes away from what he has to bring to the table. So definitely top 5. I think he's going to fall back in top 5, but I don't think he can bring top QB1 this season.
Aaron, I would assume you're on board with that as well, because you would talk about the rushing. I mean, that's just the way fantasy football works, and that's kind of what gets you to that number 1 spot. And that's why Josh Allen's one of the reasons why Josh Allen has been sitting at the top for back-to-back years, is because of that rushing. And even Patrick Mahomes.
Josh Allen will be the number 1 fantasy quarterback every year until he decides to stop. AJ hit it right on the head, and you also got to take into account the Chargers played from behind a lot last year. I mean, he threw almost 700 times. And I just don't see that continuing. The lack of rushing. He had his best. He had a really, really great year. Nobody's knocking that. Could he have a 50 touchdown year? Sure. But I think the Chargers are a better football team this year. I think they'll be ahead in games more this year, where they won't have to have as much Justin Herbert heroics to try to come back and win games late. And I think that will limit the amount of times he's throwing. In that case, I don't think he can get to the number 1 quarterback. I am not picking anybody to finish as the number 1 fantasy quarterback outside of Josh Allen because of the style of play that the Bills use Josh Allen. It's just nobody plays like that. The only other person that has a chance to me to be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football is Kyler Murray. That's it. I'm dead serious. It's not Patrick Mahomes. To me, it's Kyler Murray. It's the only one that plays like Josh Allen, where they want to incorporate him in the run game most of the time. At least they did to start his career. And he gets it around the goal line, runs in for touchdowns. And I think that breeds a number 1 fantasy quarterback. Even though he hasn't done it yet, I think that's somebody that potentially has that upside if used in that way.
AJ, you brought up Mike Williams being a big part of Justin Herbert's success and his consistency playing into Justin Herbert's success. But right now, Mike Williams is being drafted as the wide receiver 20 in drafts, or not the wide receiver. Yeah, the wide receiver 20 in PPR drafts. His consistency has been a question mark. And I've been one of those players, and laugh at me all you want for being emotional, but I've always been a little concerned and hesitant to draft a wide receiver like Mike Williams because of the way he plays. We talked about the physicality that he plays, but he has been a hot and cold, streaky wide receiver almost all of his career, but he ends up finishing high. Somehow, some way, he still ends up finishing very well. How should fantasy owners feel about drafting Mike Williams at his ADP this year as the wide receiver 20 in drafts? Aaron.
Well, first of all, I want to correct you. You said he always finishes high. That's false. He finished high 1 season. Yeah, I mean,
he's finished. He's been a wide receiver 20 and he's been a wide receiver 11. In 2018, he was wide receiver 20.
In 2018, he was wide receiver 32.
I have the stat here. I looked it up.
He was wide receiver 32. He had 600 yards and 10 touchdowns. Literally PPR wide receiver 32. You must have been looking at standard, and that would have given you wide receiver 21 with 10 touchdowns. I'm looking at it. Mike Williams has never been better than wide receiver 32 until last year. And a lot of the talk was about, he couldn't stay healthy. But when you really go back and look at those numbers, he played 16, 15, 15, and 16 games outside of his rookie year. So injuries really weren't the problem. He's just been inconsistent. The only thing I will give him is he is now playing with an elite, and I mean elite quarterback in an offense that is going to put up a ton of points. So we're talking wide receiver 2, Mike Williams. Can he be wide receiver 24? Yeah, if he's being drafted that way. I'm not reaching on him, though. That's a guy I'm letting fall into my lap as the wide receiver 24, and it's my turn to draft, and I might not know who to take, and he's there, and I say, okay, I'll take that guy. But I'm not reaching for Mike Williams because having back-to-back top 12 wide receiver years, you got to show me more after 4 seasons than doing it just one time. And one time's, again, that was his 5th year. That seems to be the outlier year. So he would have to show me again this year that he can do it before I would spend a high round draft pick on him. But I would draft him as the wide receiver 24, 25, wide receiver 2 and say, okay, that's the guy I'll hope gives me that value.
Right now, he's going ahead of Amari Cooper, ahead of Brandon Cooks, ahead of Hollywood Brown, ahead of Michael Thomas. That rounds out your wide receiver 2 spots.
A couple of those people, you should definitely.
The only one I might put him over is Amari Cooper because the quarterback position doesn't look so great right now.
Yeah. What's wild is basically everything. I know, like, we're supposed to argue on this show and whatnot, but like, literally, if you had came to me first, I was going to say that I would let Mike Williams fall to me, even if I thought he was going to finish as a wide receiver 20. And I do believe this upcoming season, I talked about this a lot last year. I like the way that they use him. They stopped only thinking about him as a deep threat. You look at his second and third year in the league, his yards per target were 10.1 yards and 11.1. The last 2 seasons, they've been at 8.9. Let's get him right in front of the first down and then let him go to work after that. And that allowed him to get open in the deep because now they start coming up on him, and then he uses those burners and those long legs and long strides to get behind the defense. So I think that he has the potential. If they continue to use him at this 8.9, 9.1 type of yards per target, you'll be able to see him continue this stretch of very, very, well, not very, very, more consistent play than we've been talking about in the past.
Yeah, last year was a good season. He's got to build on it. Bob. Let's go on to we're on our last team, the Denver Broncos. We're on our last team, the Denver Broncos here. Aaron, there was a tight end. There's a tight end in Denver that I vaguely remember, and I chatted with you a little bit about this earlier today. And I vaguely remember you bringing up Albert O as a sleeper tight end target to watch this season. Russell Wilson now at the helm in Denver. Are you still on that? Am I remembering things correctly that Albert O is a sleeper tight end for you?
Yeah, sleeper. I mean, when we talk about sleepers and we talk about tight ends, first of all, you're not getting one of the top 4 or 5 tight ends. It's start throws, right? We say, who's going to be the great tight end this week? My biggest thing here is now he has a quarterback, right? Now the tight end position. If this was Noah Fant, I would be all over Noah Fant. I mean, I'd be drafting him in every league. But Albert O has shown to be a valuable piece in that offense. They really, really like him there. I think having a Russell Wilson is going to help his fantasy, quote, outlook. By no means, when I say sleeper, am I saying Albert O is going to finish as a top 10 tight end. No, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying there are going to be weeks where Albert O is the one that you're like, man, I'm putting him in my lineup because he's had a couple of good weeks in a row or whatever. This goes to our fantasy show. When we do our weekly fantasy show, when we're putting that kind of 10 through 15 when I'm ranking them, Albert O there. Albert O will be in there a lot this year because I think that's kind of where his value will be. He'll be a quality tight end 2, where sometimes some weeks he'll have tight end 1 numbers. But yeah, so where he's being drafted, again, I'm not sure where he's being drafted currently.
Right now, he is being drafted as the tight end 18. So he's really not being drafted.
Okay, that's better than I thought he was actually being drafted at. Closer to where I have him is more, maybe it's not so much of a sleeper, but I'd probably put him right around tight end 14, 13, 14, 15 on most weeks. With Russell Wilson, I think he gets more. He had some good weeks last year. If he gets 5 to 6 targets, I think he'll have quality tight end weeks. Finds the end zone every now and then. That's a good week for a tight end. We get lost in tight end numbers in fantasy with the Travis Kelce's, the Darren Wallers, the George Kittles of the world. And we forget when you look at the 10th rate tight end for that week, he had 4 catches, 46 yards. And you're like, wait, what? That was the number 10 tight end that week? Yeah, that was the number 10 tight end that week. Yeah. So I think he'll have a lot of those.
That sucks for me because when I have to make the graphics for Pigskins and Pancakes, I'm going to have to type out Albert O. and his full name.
Oga would you banana?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
It's Okwuji Bunam or Okwuji Bunam or something like that.
We'll have it by fantasy season.
Don't lie to me. It's going to be out on the I'll just have to say Albert O on TV, and then the graphic will have to just say the whole entire name. But I'm just bummed out that I got to spell out Albert O and make sure I spell it properly. Under 8 times I spell it wrong, I'm taking the over.
I might be able to help you with that though.
Copy and paste the drug.
Not that at all. I think the name you might be typing out more often though is Greg Dolcich. I think that might be the guy. I think that he's going to step in pretty well. I mean, as a receiving tight end, I think they're going to end up using Albert O more as a blocker, and then he'll have his opportunities and he'll sneak out. But I mean, you look at what.
Why does everybody think Albert O is a blocker? He's not a blocker.
I mean, everybody used him as a blocker a lot last season. I mean, last season he only had 33 catches on the entire year.
He was a backup tight end.
Yeah, and I mean, if they thought that he was going to be the guy to come in.
Name one backup tight end in the NFL that gets 33 catches.
It's a backup a tight end. Like, why am I spending time on backup tight ends?
So to your point, last year as a backup, not even a clear-cut starter, he got 33 catches. We're talking about guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who are wide receivers that barely get 33 catches.
But he got those on the weeks that Noah Fant wasn't in.
No,
it wasn't like
no,
buddy.
No, you're wrong. Go check the game logs. Albert O played a lot, and he was going out for passes. It was not just get in there and block. He is a guy that they like in Denver. It's the reason why they were okay with trading a Noah Fant. Remember, they used a high draft pick on Noah Fant.
And then they went and brought in more tight ends.
Yeah,
like I'm not saying going into the season with just Albert O. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, I don't think you go and get a guy like Greg Dolcich, who we were pretty high on in the draft process, and a guy who's used to stretch the field. This man averaged 18 yards per catch last season and 10 touchdowns over the past 2. Like, he's not a guy they're bringing in. Like, I can't wait to see what you can do.
That's
nice. They are already enjoying him.
That's nice. Playing at UCLA in the Pac-12, you're going to tell me, oh, he went to 18 yards a catch and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's cool. Like, cool. What is that supposed to mean to me?
Cool. It's supposed to mean that they're going to enjoy
I ask you again. How many rookie tight ends in the NFL are impactful? It doesn't happen.
Kyle Pitts.
They don't even play. Kyle Pitts is the last. Even T.J. Hawkinson. Those were top 10 picks. Like, you're not seeing the third round tight end that's coming in and he's showing out like on his rookie year. It doesn't.
Did I say number one pass catcher? No, but I think he can take over Albert O. Absolutely think he can take over Albert O.
We've talked plenty of tight ends at this point. I'm glad I started the show off talking absurdly about a tight end, and now I'm ending the show talking about a tight end. Not to mention,
Albert O will be a top tight end this year. He'll be a top 10 tight end.
Albert O?
Who?
Yep. Albert O will be a top 10 tight end at the end of this year.
Great. Ooh, it's going to be a great offense because Greg Dolcich is going to be a top 8.
Well, I'll give you this little number. Last year, the 10th ranked tight end finished the season with 164 points. That's 9 points a week. Albert O will finish in the top 10 in tight ends.
Well, let's not forget that the Denver Broncos did bring in blocking tight end Eric Tomlinson at the end of free agency this year. It's a very big deal for their blocking for Russell Wilson. Let's end this on a better note here. Instead of talking about Albert O in the tight end position, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, they're going very close to each other in fantasy drafts. You talked to Aaron. You are very high on Cortland Sutton. You didn't mention you said Jerry Jeudy was closer to your bottom 8. They're going right now. Cortland Sutton is, let's see. Cortland Sutton, where art thou? There you are. Wide receiver 27 for Cortland Sutton and wide receiver 29 for Jerry Jeudy. Anybody, this is going to be the toss-up of the night. Someone slam dunk at home. What separates Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton in fantasy football this year?
All right. Well, I guess I thought he was going to want to take that alley because he's all high on Cortland Sutton. I'll actually go with the Jerry Jeudy side of things, and I think it'll be the targets. Jerry Judy's been a target monster. Unfortunately for Jerry Jeudy, he's dealt with some drops. But, I mean, as you continue to grow and now have a better quarterback, I think you start to see some of those drops fade. I don't think that's something you worry about as often. I think he's going to be a target hog, and we can see what he can do in the open field with the ball. I do think that they are deservedly so that close. Because, again, there's a lot of weapons on this offense. I know you didn't ask about him, but people are still excited about Tim Patrick and what he can be, and he's a third receiver in the entirety of the Denver Broncos. And if you want to throw a last name out there, KJ Hamler stretches the field. So, yeah. So I think Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, the separation becomes the targets. It just depends on if Jerry Jeudy will be efficient enough with those targets and opportunities that he get. And I'll let Aaron take over Cortland Sutton.
I think the difference is the touchdowns, and I think Cortland Sutton is going to be I don't want to equate it to what Seattle did in like a Lockett and DK Metcalf, but Jerry Jeudy is a premier route runner in the NFL. He's going to get targets. But I think the big plays are going to come from a Cortland Sutton. I think those 60-yard bombs that Russell likes to throw up in the air, I think those are Cortland Sutton plays. And I think that's going to end up being the difference. I see Cortland Sutton touching double-digit touchdowns this year, and I think that's really the difference between them. The reason they're being drafted so close is because you are running into a situation where no one knows what we're going to see yet. I like the skill set of a Cortland Sutton, and I love Jerry Jeudy's natural ability to run routes and catch passes and things like that. But I think what fits with Russell, I think it's Cortland Sutton fits a little bit more with Russell's style.
Do you guys think we could end up seeing, and maybe warn fantasy owners now, that we could end up seeing exactly what we saw in Seattle? And Dylan harps on this all the time, whereas DK Metcalf 1 week and Tyler Lockett the next
week.
There's
nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying there is, but is that something we should be expecting this year from the Denver Broncos with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy?
It feels like that. And one of the reasons I'll tell you why is because for them, it's not about fantasy. Like Russell Wilson ain't going out there thinking about all the people that drafted Cortland Sutton. He's out there thinking, I've got toys to play with, and I want to throw the ball to every single one of them. So, yeah, 1 week, Cortland Sutton's going to ball out. Another week, Jerry Jeudy's going to ball out. 1 week, Jerry Jeudy's going to have 13 catches, and Cortland Sutton's going to have 3 touchdowns. Like, Russell Wilson would do whatever he can do to firstly win games, and that's going to affect the fantasy squad. That's why they're being drafted so high. If you see, I can almost guarantee once one of those go, you can expect the other to go probably the next 2 picks because they don't want to miss out on what the potential of this offense can be, in my humble opinion.
I think that's spot on. I think you're going to have weeks like that. It's probably going to be close to what Seattle had, but I'm loving that if I'm a fantasy owner. Like, who was ever complaining about DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett being wide receiver 2s? Like, Dylan, we can talk about inconsistency in weeks, but we've gone over this 1,000 times. Every wide receiver outside your top, 10 are going to be inconsistent and have inconsistent weeks. It's as simple as that. You're not going to get around it. Give me a wide receiver 2, 3 at the end of the day, and I'll be happy. And I think both of those guys could end up being that if their offense goes the way it's supposed to go.
Let's break it down in stupid math like I like. If the wide receiver is every other game producing great numbers, that's 50% of the season doing great things. If I can have a wide receiver at a consistency level of 50% for the season doing great things, I'm going to be a happy camper. That does it for another episode of the Sac City Podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and follow all of our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the Sac City Pod. For my best friend Aaron Mukes and for your boy AJ Johnson, I am me. We will see you tomorrow.
Peace out.
Holla.